Welcome to Exceptional Leadership. I'm your host, Anita Brooks. Though my focus is primarily pointed to leadership at an organizational level, let me assure you, most of what I share will translate to almost any aspect of life. Just tweak the info to fit your leadership role. Because whether you approach my content as a corporate leader, middle manager, small business owner, entrepreneur, or as a family member or friend, you are influencing someone. The question is, are you influencing well, exceptionally well? So let's take courage, exercise wisdom, and humbly invest in the people we are called to influence. Join me on a quest, not for perfection, but absolutely for exceptional leadership. Welcome back, exceptional leaders. Today, I want to talk about something that I run into constantly in my business coaching practice. And I'm going to keep this podcast intentionally short. We are coming toward the end of a year, and me and my team, we have so many cool things we are working on for the coming year. And so as we are focused intently on that, because we want to provide even more beneficial information for you, we are going to make sure that we kind of hone things down in some other areas so we can focus on that. But that does not belie the importance of what I'm going to talk about today. So even though I'm not going to speak on it for an extended period of time, please do not discount how crucial this subject is, because I can assure you this is costing untold organizations thousands and thousands of dollars every year. And if I were guessing, yours is probably one of them. So let's get started. Many of my coaching scopes, I keep running into this frustration among managers and actually frontline leaders, as well as even just the people that they're doing the jobs on the front line. But it's this. I reach out, I send an email, or I ask to have a meeting, but I get no response. Lack of responsiveness costs untold amounts of money every year. And I can tell you as a coach, whereas there are so many things that I could work with an organization on to provide even more forward progress, what happens is many times the employees are so frustrated with lack of responsiveness that they end up pulling me in and begging almost desperately for help with this. And so it even slows down what I'm able to do for them and their company. So let me give you an example of something that just happened recently. And when I share this little snippet, just know that this is not uncommon. This happens fairly frequently. But I had a middle manager, and she was tasked through some of the coaching scopes that I've been doing with them to be the champion of a particular project that we had already done the measurements, the research, and determined that this could potentially be over $100,000 a year in savings. Now, at the time of this recording, we are in a high inflationary period. Everyone needs to cut as many corners as possible. And I don't care what your gross income is, $100,000 is not a pittance, and especially when you multiply that over many years. So let's say it were 5 years. That's $500,000. That's $500,000. That's the kind of impact that this project could have made. But here was this manager's frustration. So I received this email that said, I sent a meeting request 2 weeks ago. Reports were attached with a request to provide feedback and to see if I needed to gather any other information or tweak the report format. We had set a meeting location, and the attendees were supposed to be the entire executive team, as well as my fellow middle managers. And yet, I sent this several days ago. I still have not even received a response. Only one person even emailed me back to say they got my email. No one else even bothered to do that. This person did go ahead and accept the second meeting request that I sent as a follow-up. But then came the date and time of the meeting. And even though I sent multiple follow-ups requesting RSVPs, just let me know you're going to be there. Do you have any questions? Do you have any comments? Is there anything else I need to do? Crickets. That's all this manager heard. And then the day and the time of the meeting came and no one showed up. Can you imagine for this manager what that must have felt like? They had spent hours and hours working on a task that, frankly, by the way, all of these people who were supposed to be in attendance had agreed was of high importance. It was a priority item for their company. And yet, none of them really engaged in the follow-up. Well, I did get involved when I got this email, so I was able to circle back. And that's part of what coaching does, frankly. In business coaching, a lot of my time is spent holding people accountable and making sure that they execute, that they follow through on the tasks that, frankly, are going to benefit their business and help to strengthen their net profits. So that's what I did in this case. And so they did end up finally getting together. They met, they reviewed the reports, and come to find out, not only was the implementation of this project going to save over $100,000 a year, it was actually going to be closer to $337,000 a year. Okay, you can do that math over a 5-year period. Was it beneficial for everyone to, by the way, keep their word, be responsive, and get involved in doing something as simple as giving feedback? This manager did all the work. They did all the groundwork. They did embrace, and they were the champion of this. Thankfully, they didn't give up. And thankfully, I was able, as a coach, to be able to intervene and help. But just imagine if I hadn't. Just imagine if they hadn't. This amount of money would have continued to be lost on an annual basis. I don't know about you, but I can't afford to be throwing $300,000 a year away. And I see and hear this type of scenario on a weekly basis. At P4 Power Coaching, I can tell you that I could probably, if it were appropriate, and it's not, but I could probably list off at least 24 names of people in businesses that could frankly be saving a lot of money just due to lack of responsiveness, though it holds them up. And here's the thing. So sometimes because of lack of responsiveness, they never get there at all. Like everything comes to a screeching halt. It just stops. It's like they've hit a brick wall and there's never any forward movement after that. I've even seen several instances where that will take place. And then someone in an executive leadership or ownership or even a board position wants to come back later on and blame that employee because they didn't get it done. Well, frankly, you at that top place, you were the bottleneck. You were the one who caused the brick wall. You were the one that made everything come to a screeching halt simply by lack of responsiveness. And just think about this. Even if lack of responsiveness doesn't stop us from making forward movement at all, it still drastically slows it down. Let me ask you this. Do you have time to be doing jobs over and over, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times over again? In some instances, when there is a project or a process or some kind of implementation that needs to take place, and the individuals who are tasked with driving that forward are not able to get the answers that they need or get the confirmation, the feedback that's required, then they may have to go through multiple levels of people just to chase down a response. That is inefficient. That is a time waste. That is an expense waste. And none of us really, if we are honest, have the money to throw at things that we don't complete and that we don't work efficiently to follow through on the first time. So I just want to put this out there. As exceptional leaders, and you remember, that's our focus here. It's not mediocre management. We want to be high caliber, exceptional leaders. That means we're set apart. That means we do much more than the average. But that also means that we get very, very high results. But that cannot happen if you do not communicate with people who are trying to communicate with you. So the next time that you find yourself frustrated because your people didn't follow through on something, they didn't get it done, before you go jump, take a hard look in the mirror and ask yourself, has there been anywhere along the way where I was the bottleneck, where I threw up a brick wall, and where maybe that employee became not just frustrated, but disappointed. And so they gave up. They thought, well, why bother? Why try? Because if they feel like you don't care about that as much as they do, you can douse their spirit. You can cause them to lose hope. And don't kid yourself. That could cost your business, your organization, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year as well. So, your exceptional leadership coaching challenge today, no matter when you're listening to this, but if you're listening to it in its current state, we have a new year coming upon us. And it's always a good time to just reflect and say to yourself, what can I do better? Let me tell you something. You can do this better. Make it your mission to be highly responsive to your people. Highly responsive maybe to vendors or customers or clients. Actually, let's just say highly responsive in general. You know, most of the time we grouse and we complain about having to get back with someone, but in reality, it doesn't take us that much time. But here's the thing. If you don't get back with them right away, you're going to spend double the time because you're going to get another reach out in most cases. And hopefully you do. And in that reach out, then you have to stop and either listen to the voicemail or read the text or read the email again when you've already done this one time and go through all of the emotions and all of the time that's spent just to process it again and frankly make a decision whether or not you're going to get back with them. But if you don't deal with it, one of two things are going to happen. Either you're going to keep dealing with it over and over and over and over again, or you're not going to have to deal with it again until maybe months or even years down the road, you realize that you spent a lot of money unnecessarily because you didn't stop and take the time to just respond to someone else who frankly was carrying on the charge. So, exceptional leaders, I want you to challenge yourself to be responsive. Communicate early and often. I personally have a goal that unless I am just out of town or in the midst of a big business coaching scope, or maybe I'm at a conference where I have multiple days where I'm speaking and it just takes me from early morning to late at night, unless it's that type of scenario, which by the way is very rare, I challenge myself to respond within 48 business hours to any text or email or voicemail that I get. You can do that. I know it's feasible. I'm telling you, I work a lot of hours, but the one thing that I strive not to lose sight of, those people that may sometimes be reaching out to me that in the moment may feel like an irritant, that is a false belief. They're not an irritant. They're an opportunity. And if you don't take that opportunity, it could come with a great cost. So challenge yourself, be responsive, and be responsive every time. Well, thank you for joining me for this episode of Exceptional Leadership. More and more, I just want to encourage you as a leader. I know that it can feel lonely at the top, but I'm here for you. I hope that not only do you find great education, but that you do feel encouraged as well. I want you to know you're not alone. There are a lot of people out there who are also carrying on their charge. They are being the champion in their organization to make things better and to drive exceptional results. Thanks for joining me for this episode of the Exceptional Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Anita Brooks. And I just want to remind you of a truth. If you are not leading at the level that you want to be at, remember, it is never too late for a fresh start with fresh faith. You can start today. You can start making a difference. You can help the world become a better place. You can begin to lead with intent. Your family, your friends, the people you work with, your community, in your church, in our nation, across the planet. Whatever opportunities come your way, remember that did not happen by accident. And by stepping up and leading exceptionally well, you will help fulfill the purpose you were created for.